Good morning, folks. I just wanted to start our day today with a coffee break. As you can see here on the screen, this is a coffee break, but since it's the East Asian Management class, we're going to be focusing today on Vietnam and your presentations. I see over here, first of all, in this week 12, I haven't seen too many people reserving times yet. So if I check into the sign up, we already had some people presenting. If anybody else wants to present new information, of course, there's points for presenting any articles. I encourage you guys to do that, especially related to Vietnam, and remind you that this is a PDF that's online. It's in our class folders. If you guys can comment on this, summarize this, that would be great. There is another article inside our class folder, and non-Vietnamese coming into the system. I just saw that the microphone was off. Could you guys hear everything I was saying earlier?
Yes.
Okay, good. So hopefully everybody can also reference something like this and talk about it. And this is what generally started the international management and the capitalistic explosion, the boom of business, which is the government policy. If anybody wanted to talk about this, and that would be great. But overall, there's several articles here and videos, and even TikTok videos. There's 100 million people in Vietnam, lots of information related to it. Not very much research has been done on Vietnam because it's so new. Again, I would repeat, because it's so new, there may be lacking of things, but there's a lot more opportunities for the business people, and it's really starting to grow. A lot of these videos that I will be showing and some of these articles may comment about how Vietnamese people are working with the international market and international people. And just like almost every country that just starts development, usually the big business people are not there first. Usually it's the creative tourist style, the backpackers that are going around the world. They are sometimes the first people there. And so the idea of some Vietnamese culture may have been formed by interactions with tourist backpackers as opposed to business community. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter what's in my mind, doesn't matter what's in anybody's mind other than the person you're trying to do business with. So we must understand, who is it that we're trying to do business with? Are there any questions before I start to show a small video talking about or showing how people may do international business? Any questions or comments from anybody? Going once? Going twice? So I see there's several people here. Jacovir, you're okay? No questions or comments?
No, everything is fine. So far.
Thomas, okay, great. So here is the short video I'm going to play you.
Lâm đây Trinh ơi, cuộc họp lúc 4 giờ hả? Ok, để Lâm hỏi Nick cái nhá. Ok, để tí xíu nha, để máy nha. Nick, Trinh want to confirm the meeting on 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock?
Yeah, it's okay.
4 o'clock, okay.
Okay, finish your coffee and go.
We go, okay.
Yeah, okay.
One of the things we need to talk about related to business is this right here. Why is coffee so important in Vietnam? Any comments?
Because Vietnam is one of the biggest coffee producer and coffee culture.
Right. Almost all coffee in the world is made from Vietnam. It's definitely the close to the top ranked of just manufacturers of not just coffee in Vietnam, but around the world. And it's very, very popular there. But the coffee here is different. Since coffee is known almost everywhere in the world, the Western culture knows coffee made by a smooth Arabica bean. The Vietnamese coffee is a tougher, stronger, Robusta bean. Usually it's a little bit bitter. And so when they're making it, usually it's pure black, really, really strong, but they mix it with a condensed milk. And that's a very, very popular thing everywhere. So wherever you go, people are serving you cafe suada. The idea of the Vietnamese coffee is very popular. It's usually served with ice. And so at the beginning of beginning of any meetings, there could be a coffee. Let's get into the ideas. Actually, before I show you this, how about Jacobir or Thomas Ulugbeck, any of you, do you guys want to guess what would be different if you are going into Vietnam and you're about to start meetings, or you're going to do meetings in Vietnam? What do you know is like a requirement or popular or proper to do business in Vietnam that might be different than in New York or throughout the United States? Jacobir, Thomas Ulugbeck, I'm asking you guys, I haven't heard too much from you guys because you have not been in Vietnam. What is your guess?
I have completely no idea.
What have you heard online? Let's take a look at this then. So how can we figure it out? So first of all, what are we looking at here and what should this show?
Yes, it talks about Hofstede's cultural dimensions.
Right. Everybody doing any international management, we must understand culture is very important. You have to understand culture. One of the most popular guys doing research is Hofstede. He has almost like a game style fun website, at least for me, and it's describing culture in many different countries around the world. Hofstede started as a business person working with IBM and surveyed more than 100 different IBM branches around the world, comparing how people were different. A problem with Hofstede is he says everybody in one country is generally the same. Obviously, that's not true. India, for example, China will have thousands of different cultures inside the one country. Another thing is when Hofstede was doing his research, he was working for IBM, so they're tech geeks, maybe a little bit like me. And so tech geeks are not the same as average people around the world. So it's a little bit biased, but it is still really good. I have indicated South Korea, United States, and Vietnam. Can you guys give me one other country and we can compare 4 countries together? And then I want you, based on those countries, to tell me how you need to do business in Vietnam, just based off of this website. Pick one more country.
Italy.
Italy. Okay, that's, I don't get that. Looks like Hofstede didn't care about Italy. Sorry, friends in Italy. Did he spell it wrong? Is there any other way to spell Italy? Nope. Sorry. Oops. We have hundreds of. Oh, it is here. What's going on? What? Why is this not working? Is it already in here? For some reason, it's not working with Italy. Let's try. What's your second selection?
I would put there something in Europe, like Germany, France, or something. So it is like from different parts of the world.
Germany. So we have 4 countries here. Let's take a look at how does Hofstede describe Vietnam. Sorry, we've got a slow internet connection today. You can start to see the details here. I'll lower it when the internet catches up. United States is the green, Vietnam is the orange. This first one, I believe, is the power distance. The next one, I believe, is the individualism, collectivism. So if this is power distance and the United States is high power distance, no, that can't be right. I'm going to have to close some of these. If you guys want to show your screen for the business system of Vietnam, go ahead. If you guys want to talk about business people in Vietnam, how they work internationally, please go ahead. Same thing for the government policy that help make Vietnam develop new businesses. Go ahead. I'll try to get out of almost everything I can to speed this up.
Professor, I have one question about Vietnamese. May I know that why there are a lot of name Nguyen?
Same thing in Korea. Why are there a lot of Kims or Parks in Korea? It's just a popular name. Tuong, would you like to talk about it? Do you know any other reason? There isn't a requirement. You're not supposed to say or pick Nguyen. It's just the family passes on the family name. It's just a popular name.
So just because the surname we have started from the dynasties, kind of like the governments in in the past. So before our independence, so we kind of like we got that rules. For example, in the north, so we have to kind of like went through the many how can I say, is it the emperor, the dynasty emperor. So basically, so that's kind of old government system where push everybody having that name is that from his name, his surname. So that's why for example in the north we can see that a lot of people with the serving Nguyen, and in the south maybe some much difference because for example the Lê or Chen. So that's why we have that surname. So we are children, we are supposed to have that surname from the parents.
Great. So Ulubek, now that you're talking about Nguyen's, would you be able to describe how should you do business with Nguyen's based off of power distance, individualism, masculinity, etc. You can skip these. There's many arguments about these, but these are very well proven. How do you need to interpret this to do business with Vietnam? For example, from New York, how does a person from New York need to manage in Vietnam?
I think there are a lot of gap between individualism in United States and Vietnam. I think the man from United States should focus on not only individual people, with group. I think they should focus on.
And maybe Jacobir or Thomas, can you give me an example of somebody from New York when they go here? Ulugh said we need to focus on a group. Can you give me an example of that? That's true. How do you do it?
Maybe to try something again with the Chamber of Commerce.
Good. So when you go into the country, you don't know anybody, nobody else knows you. So as an individual, it's hard to get into the group. One of the easiest groups for you to get into to do business is a Chamber of Commerce. As long as you pay a membership fee, they will help you. Yes, very good. And they're very valuable not as developed as other countries. It's still relatively new, but yes, it's much, much better than going alone. Great. What is another example of a group that you should be thinking about and trying to connect with? You being maybe students.
I guess that they're a group of students and maybe a group of people of my own nationality in the city or of the same interest. Like if I play golf, someone from there.
You said 3 different things. You said contact a group of students. Yes, if there were Vietnamese students at your university that you were aware of, contact them. They can introduce you. That would be very valuable, especially knowing that a lot of Vietnamese, if they can go to another country and thrive internationally, they're probably very, very, very wealthy. Usually in Vietnam, you're very modest or you're very wealthy. Usually there's the extreme. So the people that are traveling are usually quite wealthy and probably well connected. The second thing you were saying, there are other people from your country that are there. They probably have a group amongst them, like the Korean society in each city has a very big network and they can give you discounts and introduce you to people. That's very valuable. The last thing you just said was maybe one of the most valuable. Playing golf. I'm from Canada. Playing golf, anybody can play Canada. I play golf just walking down the park or the beach with a dog. I'll hit the golf ball and the dog will go get it. So it's not a big deal for me. Going to play 18 holes is not very expensive. Anybody can do it. But in Korea, it's super, super expensive. And in Vietnam, likewise, usually it's pretty expensive to play golf. If you can get into the golf course, anybody there is probably very wealthy and usually very well connected. So if you're going to play golf with these very wealthy people, they would usually be very open to chatting with you, open to helping you, and very helpful for your business. So that's a great idea. What about, as you were saying, power distance or uncertainty avoidance? Anybody else? Pia, do you want to take a crack at it?
Well, with uncertainty avoidance, it seems like I assume that since it's so low, they don't avoid risk. So I think they're probably very open to new businesses. So it might be good to go to this country if you have new ideas and search for new business partners.
Good. So a lot of Vietnamese are very entrepreneurial, very open to trying new things. It should be very easy to connect with other people with new business ideas. The fact that the Des Moines policy, the government policy, helped create people, helped create opportunities for people. Now, almost anybody, almost everybody in the country is very interested in starting their own business or developing an extra opportunity for income. So yes, that's a good idea. Versus in Korea, we see that they're going to avoid trying many new things. It's a lot harder to get into Korea than it is in Vietnam. Good idea. Good point. Anything else? What about this?
I think the uncertainty avoidance is low in Vietnam just because the government is opening policies for the private business enterprises, and also as you can see, the cost here is kind of low compared to other countries. So that's why you see, it kind of around 80% of the companies here in Vietnam is the SMEs, so the small and medium-sized company. Just due to the very good policies, conditions. So that's why we can do that.
Is the same in almost every country in the world. Most countries, the government is trying to promote small businesses, and most countries, small and medium businesses are most of the businesses of the country. So yes, that's true, but it doesn't really help people from any other country going back and forth. Any other suggestions or ideas of how you can actually change? Because in Canada, the government helps small businesses. That's true. And there's a lot of small businesses. That's true. So if I'm Canadian, how does that help in Vietnam? How does that help me start a new business in Vietnam?
It is cost, and the customers are willing to try the new things.
Okay, that's a good point. In Canada, people will try new things, but maybe not as much as in Vietnam. Vietnam is very open to new things. Yes, they're more entrepreneurial than even Canadians. Yes, that's a good point. Anything else? Jacob here or UNO, the expert that lived in Vietnam for several years? UNO or Jacob, are you guys still here?
Yes, Professor, I have a
yes.
question.
Yes, go ahead.
I've heard that the young people in Vietnam are going to the south to start up their business, and in the north is very tightly regulated by the government. I want to know how true it is. You've been in Vietnam.
That's true in many ways, but just like we heard from the last comment, we have to take a look at the details. People in any country are usually going from not populated areas like farming areas, small villages, they're going to the big cities to get opportunities. And the South has the biggest city, one of the biggest in the world. I believe there's like 12 million people officially in Ho Chi Minh. Some people say there's over 20 million people in Ho Chi Minh. All of them are usually focused on businesses versus the second biggest city in the country is in the north, and that's where the government is. And so most of the control of that big city in the north is focused on government. But there's lots of businesses in any big city anywhere in the world. If you're in the south, yes, lots of people go to Ho Chi Minh. Yes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I got it.
Any other questions about how anybody can do business in any country just using this website? Just knowing the cultural values and knowing that what you think is not really that important. It's more important how the other people think, or what's the average. And no matter what you do, when you get there, this is based on stereotypes. So you need to check your stereotype is accurate. So let's go back and finish watching this video about how an international business person or a reporter talks to businesses. The first thing that they're showing is they arrive pretty early, and usually for example, I believe in Germany and in the United States and Canada, you schedule a meeting a long time in advance. You tell them, I'd like to meet maybe next month or 2 weeks later. If you say, let's meet tomorrow, that's sometimes considered not professional, unprofessional. Maybe you are not really professional if you can go back and forth easily. Pia, would you like to comment on that? Do you think that's true in Germany?
Oh yeah, everyone has probably their whole year planned out. So it's really hard to find a place to meet.
Similar in Canada, maybe not the whole year, but yes, you have to plan a long time in advance. If you just show up as a cold call, it might not be that good. Versus in Vietnam, they are more entrepreneurial as long as you say we're going to meet maybe tomorrow or say we're going to meet the next day. That is okay, but more important than that, as we saw with Hofstede, the individualism, collectivism, Vietnam is still collectivist. They're still group oriented. So you need somebody else to introduce you. And they should introduce you politely 1 or 2 days at least in advance, maybe 2 weeks in advance is very, very professional. And then because many things change, Vietnam went from a poor country to it's becoming a rich country, just blinking your eye really fast. So things change, contracts change, companies change really fast. And if you don't check in the last day and in the last few hours about your meeting, there's a chance your meeting's going to change too. So you should check in advance.
Professor, I have one more question. It is kind of like out of the topic a little bit, but like because you work for a really big company, is it hard to find a employee that will basically like travel around the world and do business in different cultures? Because I feel like a lot of people want to do it, but as I'm thinking about it, it also takes a lot of time, and like you cannot be with your family or stuff. And I feel like it is also really difficult to kind of like jump between the cultures. Is it hard to find such a person?
I hear at least two things from your question. I hear, is it possible to find like a digital nomad that can work from a laptop on a beach and travel anywhere? And so my comment about that is, it's hard to find them anywhere. They're so new. They just generally started recently, relatively recently, but they are in Vietnam. The second thing is it hard to find a regular employee that will work for a company, but then go to a sales meeting in New York, go to a sales meeting in Shanghai, and then Santiago, Chile, and all around the world? That I think is relatively similar also for young people that aren't really married with big family responsibilities and things. Usually when anybody's in university, they want to travel. As soon as they finish university, they're still eager to travel. I think that is maybe similar around the world. However, people dream of it, but not very many people do it. Like even in the United States, very developed country, a lot of people in the United States don't usually go out of their city or their state most of their life. So it is relatively rare, but a lot of people like that opportunity. I, for example, have done that, and I don't know anybody else that I grew up with that has traveled and worked internationally like me. It's super, super rare, in my opinion, to do a lot of work. That's high level international sales or marketing people. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Vietnam, they're very entrepreneurial, so anybody will try anything. And since it is a relatively poor country, most people cannot afford to travel. If the company is going to send them, absolutely, they're going to like cut off an arm in able to go travel. They really want to do it. It's similar to any place. For example, even 20 years ago in China, one way to get business is you have to find a company. And then you have to get the company to agree to work with you. And in China, you also have to get government approval to allow the business to prosper. And so one way to do that 20 years ago in China is you just go to the company and say, part of our business deal is we will take you to Toronto for a 1 or 2 week training program, which all that means is you play golf and you talk in a company for 1 day. You take them, you tour them around the world, and they're going to agree to a lot of things. Same thing, you bring the government officers to check your business is okay, do the same thing. Bring them over, and a lot of those newly emerging countries like that. And Vietnam is no different. So if you, does that answer your question, or is that complicating it too much?
Yeah, it does answer the question. Thank you.
Vietnamese social etiquette also requires a third party to do the introductions, as it is not polite for Vietnamese to introduce themselves. Proper introductions will also lend credibility and ensure you are taken seriously, as too many foreigners have come and made lots of promises that do not eventuate. Vietnamese tend to be extra cautious of those without introductions. Addressing Vietnamese formally with the prefix Miss or Mr. is a sign of polite respect, appropriate in a business setting. The formal address is preferred, unless invited to go on a first name basis.
Mr. Duck. Oh, right. Mr. Duck. Okay. Mr. Nick. All right. Mike.
Okay.
I have been working and living in Vietnam for many years. What they just said, it's kind of true. You need to respect people in Vietnam. So call them a name with respect, but I have been there many years and I still can't find out what is the name to easily call them. I'm getting better at it, but what he just said is not true. It usually Dup is like the first given name, sorry, the first, it's not the family name. Usually Win or other names are the family name, and they say, just like here in Korea, my name is Sean Watts, my father is Mr. Watts, Dr. Watts, I am Dr. Watts, but here they call me Dr. Sean. In Vietnam, it's almost the same, Dr. Sean, Professor Sean. And he was just saying, Mr. Sean, not his family name, that would probably be Mr. Win. So they're forgiving with that, but it is polite to be respectful.
Okay. Oh, same surname. Are you related?
No, we surname Nguyen is quite popular in Vietnam. You get 5,000 people have the same surname.
Right.
They call me Jin.
Jin.
Yeah.
Okay, Miss Jin.
Yes, or you can just call me Jin.
Okay, then Nick.
Do you like Ho Chi Minh City so far?
It's nice, a very nice city, beautiful place. Very fast, very exciting. Seems to be a lot of development going on here.
Okay, let's talk about our business.
Vietnamese consider it impolite to talk business straight away. Instead, they engage in small talk, discussing general topics like the weather, economy, the industry, and recent news events. You can ask about the company and use the discussion to gauge how far they have moved towards a profit-making center as opposed to a socialist enterprise. Vietnamese have very strong national pride regardless of their job. Colonialist attitude and arrogance will lose you respect faster than anything else. When it comes to business proposals, there is no single decision maker, but usually quite a maze of roles, people in positions to win over.
Chị Hiền Văn Phong đã đọc cái hợp đồng đó rồi. Thì không biết là mấy chị có thấy có cần thay đổi gì không? Mình đã xem qua và thấy điều khoản rất là tốt với cái thủ tục pháp lý.
While the Western business system emphasizes efficiency and quick decisions, Vietnamese look for consensus and developing relationships.
I would like to invite you to my house for dinner tomorrow afternoon.
Really?
Yeah.
Your house?
He's really want to do business with you because inviting somebody to the house is a good sign.
What is Vietnamese culture?
Yeah, well, that's very kind of you. Yeah, I mean, I'd love that.
How about 6 a.m., 6 p.m.?
6 p.m.?
Right, yeah.
Great, yes.
Okay.
From the business...
My job is to make college easier.
So that idea of bringing people to your home for dinner, it's Vietnamese people are very, very friendly for sure, but I don't think this is really the average, proper, popular thing to do. In Canada, usually business is supposed to be business or professional, and personal is usually completely separate. So you don't talk about that in Canada. You don't invite business clients to your house for dinner. Sometimes you can, but it's not the average. In Korea, it's almost never heard of. Usually, businesses will never go to somebody's house. About the only time you will go to somebody's personal gathering is maybe for a wedding or a funeral. Other than that, you don't go to somebody's house in Korea. In Vietnam, I think it's not a standard thing here. Tom, did you want to comment on that? Do you think it's standard for people to go to somebody's personal house for business?
It's not. I mean, if you're a foreigner, so normally you are not welcome to do business at the house, but the welcome to visit the house or like for just visiting, holidays, something like that.
Good. Any other comments about the general concept of doing business with Vietnamese so far?
So the Vietnamese people just want to, when they think about starting business, they often think about the benefits. So if you want to require them to do many things, but they don't see the benefits first, so normally it's hard for them to say yes in the business. So they also so at the beginning, so also they also try to get to know about you a lot, even kind of the private life. So they feel very close if they want they can know about you and also the members around you. So if you are comfortable to share about the private life, so that's very common here. So you may face a lot of private questions, the question about the privacies. But they don't feel that's rules, but just how we think that it's good to know about the other people, and it's kind of like how we show our friendliness to the partners.
Good. So we are aware of the location. We're aware of some of the tourist aspects of Vietnam. Everything is growing really fast. It is a big coastal city, so the inland countries generally have to go through Vietnam. That's one reason that it's growing quite a lot. Using the research reports, as we talked about, it is a very good thing to help with your businesses. But the idea of research, it's very new in Vietnam. Some people say that after the war, Hanoi had the power, and they thought that the war started because other people were educated in a bad way, in a different way. And so after the war, the idea of promoting education was good around the north, but the south was basically discouraged from having a lot of new education. So a lot of universities, anywhere from central Vietnam to the southern Vietnam, just started generally in the 1990s. A lot of the universities just started in the 1990s. However, you guys were born around that time. Now, can you imagine what that would do to you if you were born in a time where everybody wanted to develop businesses and schools basically just started, universities just started? What is the impact of that? The government says, okay, start schools. So how do you do it when you are self-reliant? A lot of countries, they can't afford to bring in teachers from other countries. So you have local people teaching in these universities that themselves don't really have educational past. The people that have traveled to other countries and then come back are very rare. And that's a very good thing. That's a very luxurious thing. So the local schools taught by local people, those teachers, what are they teaching if they weren't taught properly? Some of them might have been taught by YouTube. So be aware of how that. Another thing is similar to Korea many years ago when it was starting, and China when it was starting, Vietnam when it was starting, some people will buy their certifications. You can buy a driver's license. You could buy a real estate license or certification. Some people can buy many types of licenses or permits. It's starting to change very rapidly because it's exploding so fast, but be aware that using research, it's good for you, but the people that have made the research papers, sometimes they're basing it on like a YouTube video, not good research. So you need to check that. The other thing is, if people are new to research, they may not understand the value of research. So versus in Korea, if you go to a company and you show an executive you have these very valuable research articles to help you do your business, in Korea or in Canada and USA, those executives should be grateful. They should be happy. But in Vietnam, you may find business people saying, so what? You've got a newspaper, you've got a paper. Why should I care? I've got a bunch of papers over there. So think about those things. An opportunity for academics is so much is new to the world and they don't know very much about Vietnam. You if you do proper research, you could probably publish almost anything related to Vietnam. That's a good sign. So the idea of culture, we've gone through a bunch of these different things. Confucianism, very, very strong. The idea of who you're supposed to respect. You're supposed to respect people that have this connection. Of course, this bottom part is very important. There's some things that can be confusion, some things that can be confusing. Confucianism stresses, yes, you're supposed to do things, but if it brings benefit for me, anything's okay. And the idea of loyalty, you should be loyal to others, but if it brings benefit to me, okay, I might overlook it. The idea of honor, filial piety, respect for age, same thing. All of these things are accurate, but there's also many twists. For example, you're supposed to be a loyal student, and you're supposed to generally do this step for your class project, and this, and this, and this, and this, and sometimes the professor shakes his hand like this. You need to follow all of these things. The students may be able to see, well, okay, well, the thumb is very close to the middle finger, so why don't I just go from here to here? And then they can do the project and say, you said do this, so I did it. Connect these things, and he did. That type of thinking, it's very entrepreneurial. It's not cheating, it's not lying, it's seeing a way that's more efficient. So be aware of that. We talked about the Confucianism. We've went through almost all of this last class. So let's go back and start identifying things that we haven't talked about so much. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, it said I just signed out, but all right. The idea of hierarchy, yes. In Vietnam, the boss is the boss. Similar to East Asia, China, Japan, Korea, when they were developing, that Confucianism is popular everywhere. There's the hierarchy. Very different than in Scandinavia, where they're perfectly flat. In East Asia, it's hierarchical. Not just that, but information is spread evenly in Scandinavia and parts of the Western world. But in East Asia and in Vietnam, information is controlled just at the top of the hierarchy. So that hierarchy needs to be aware of almost anything. I have seen organizations where the hierarchy says they want something, and somebody down here goes ahead and they make these plans, but if they develop too fast and the top person, like the founder or the CEO, hasn't actually okayed it, that founder or the CEO can stop everything. Sometimes that founder of a company or founder of an organization, they're controlling everything and they always have. That's all they've known. If somebody else starts developing things even inside the company without the founder or the CEO's approval or their stamp, then that project that grows really fast can be stopped, even if it's helping the organization. So make sure you understand that you need to respect the hierarchy. Somebody down below can agree to things, but make sure that final stamp at the top is done and pay the respects to the top. It's usually best to say most of the projects are the ideas of the founder. And when you go in Vietnam, it's also a lot of image. So even though this person and I agreed to help the whole company, when we make that agreement, it has to be approved by the CEO. And then we will have a CNN or BBC, a newspaper, a TV story will be talking about this event, and we may not talk about this guy at all. Maybe it's just the CEO and the company that are signing the agreement and in the news. Make sure you pay respect to that hierarchy. Very hierarchical system. similar to the Mandarin system. One thing, some people say it's good, some people say it's bad. The rich people are very rich. The powerful people are very, very powerful. Usually they're connected to owning quite a lot of land. And now land prices are skyrocketing very, very fast. So the rich are getting super rich, and the poor people that are renting their land, they're just using the land of the rich people. They're staying usually poor. And so the rich people can get a lot of the local people to work for them. Lots of people have a maid or a servant or a car driver or somebody to come in and give you a massage, somebody to come in and make clothes for you, since almost everything is still very affordable for the local person, yet the wealthy people are getting very wealthy very fast. The idea of name cards is pretty important. This says avoid public displays of affection with the opposite sex. I think this is changing quite a bit. A lot of this is traditional. Even in Canada, Canada is pretty open-minded. There's the LGB, that whole society of openness to gay, lesbian, bi, trans. Everybody in Canada is supposed to accept it, but in Vietnam, it's very, very open-minded. A lot of people, even in classes, almost every class I've had a trans person or a bi person in the class, maybe cross-dressing, and it's just accepted. Almost every class I've had, not every business meeting, but it is very open. Dining etiquette, this is similar throughout East Asia. This idea of putting your chopsticks in your rice, it is accepted only when you're giving something to dead people for respect, on like a funeral, or every year they will celebrate the funeral of the oldest father, things like that. Otherwise, you don't do this because it means somebody will die or somebody already has died. So lay your chopsticks sideways. Gifts, very big. Jay, come here. What does envelope mean in Vietnam? The envelope culture. Give you a few seconds. How about Yasser? What does the envelope culture mean in Vietnam?
Last time we talked about it, I remember that, but I don't remember the exact reason, but I guess it was like trying to show that you're, respect that person. We talked about the police stuff, and I remember that.
So I give an envelope to somebody with a birthday card and a card saying, thank you, I respect you? Not exactly. It shows a type of respect. Anybody else? Can we help clarify that? It's a good start.
Yes, you talked about like coffee money, that you give someone a little bit or a bit amount of money to show your respect, like you said, but also your goodwill for good business.
Yes, it's goodwill for the business. You're getting much closer. Good. Can we go on and clarify it a little bit more? That you said coffee money. The correct why we said that is to put a positive name on something that Canada and the United States say is completely illegal. It's a bribe. It's bad. And so local people in Vietnam call it coffee money to make it cute and acceptable. It's not completely bad. It's a requirement. Everybody needs coffee to work. But it's not just the coffee you're doing. What exactly is the money for? It's an envelope with money. Why? Why are you paying money?
I think we had the example with the police, because they're so busy with everyone that this coffee money is basically their reward for paying special attention to you. So it's really just a favor to gain something personal from them too.
Right. For example, anybody in a company, in the government organization, nobody's supposed to accept it. There are laws prohibiting it, but the difference between what's on the laws and what's real life, real business can be mismatched. So yes, everybody's working, everybody has a job to do. If you want your job to be done today, you're here, you want to do it now, that all of these other people waiting are going to feel a little bit bad. And I already have other jobs to do. I'm going to get in trouble. They're going to give me headaches. So I'm paying you to slow this down and add more headache to your business so that you will give me not just your time, but extra favor. And the amount of money shows how serious the request is, how serious the business is. And it's not just a business thing. For example, every year there's a national holiday, and during the national holiday, you're supposed to give an envelope to almost anybody you have a connection with, including the front doorman or your secretary, or sometimes even the kids in your neighborhood. You may give a small amount. It could be 50 cents. As long as you're giving them an envelope, it shows that you like them, you trust them, you respect them, you want to grow that relationship. If it's just a doorman and you're just giving 50 cents or $1, that's still kind of nice. It's not really worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to have a doorman. So the envelope is the level of respect, but you should show respect to many people. And at the same time, it's not just the envelope. Sometimes it's very popular throughout East Asia to also give like a fruit basket or a gift basket with canned meat or vegetables or fruit or coffee, whatever it is. If you guys have questions about this, let me know. Table manners, there's usually it's pretty open. There are some rules. Let's get into the research articles. This is quite popular for personal life and culture. I wanted to get to this part, the part 3, more about articles and the business practices. So as we see here, here's an article. It's by a Vietnamese person, but they're from one of the most respected universities in the country. So this should be respected. This idea of Westerners may see humility and modesty of the Vietnamese people as indirect and deceitful, while the Vietnamese may see the individual assertiveness of the Westerners as arrogant and tactless. Again, that idea of you know what you know, and you think that's right. What you do is right to you. But the person on the other side of the world, if the world is round and the person at the top is pointing, this is right, the exact same idea, the person on the other side of the world is pointing the other way. So it's not good, it's not bad, it's not right, it's not wrong. There are just different reasons and justifications for doing it. So as we said, the idea of some people in Vietnam might change a contract because the American person or the non-Vietnamese person just took so long. In the Vietnamese person's mind, everything's growing so fast. There's new cities being built like that. Apartment buildings are being built so fast. Companies are developing really, really fast. Millions of dollars moving very fast everywhere. If you come in like the German way and say, okay, I want to make this agreement, we'll make the agreement. But in the contract, you've read every line. But the Vietnamese, still contracts are relatively new. It's more important to have the relationship. So you give them something to sign, they will sign it. The CEO will have to get the agreement. Even the CEO, they don't usually sign. Sometimes they don't sign by hand. They still have a stamp. And so it will be official. But then if you go back to Germany or United States or Canada, and you don't talk to them for 6 months or a year before your big business is supposed to start, they could think that you're not serious and just the agreement's garbage. And so they've gone on to make another agreement with somebody else. That's not deceitful in their mind. You showed you didn't care in their mind. So make sure you understand that. Going through this, it's great to read about some of these things. Let's go through. UNO, would you like to read this article? Can you read this?
Vietnamese culture often tries to avoid personal conflict. Harmony is preserved and keeping faith is desirable. Support, trust, and respect are important factors in building relationship between partners. Westerners may see that the humility and modesty of the Vietnamese people and indirect and deceitful white, while the Vietnamese may see the individual assertiveness of Westerners and arrogant and tactless. Therefore, working and getting along with business partners may be challenging for both sides. The Vietnamese also want to be respected. This can be manifested in daily decision-making and communication.
So you are a specialist, you know. Do you have any comments about that? Since you have been experienced in Vietnam?
Yeah, but maybe more than a decade ago.
Okay. And a decade ago, Vietnam was very different than it is today. I went to Vietnam in the early 90s, and then I went there again in around 2000, and I went again with the family in 2015, and each time things are incredibly different. For example, when I first moved my family to Vietnam in 2015, I'm from Canada. I grew up with a car. And other people in Vietnam usually only have a bicycle. And so when I get there, I need a car to just get around. It's just a standard thing. So when I got there, there was almost no other cars on the streets of the city in Da Nang. Now there's cars everywhere. Just in a few short years, the whole city has changed. Everybody's trying to get cars. And the idea that you can't afford a full car on your own, there's hundreds of people that are just getting cars because they are part of a wealthy family or they have a friend with a wealthy family. They can borrow the money to buy a car, and then they're renting it out to the people that can't afford or don't have the potential to get a loan. There's lots of new opportunities. We are almost out of time. I wanted to keep going through. There's lots of different comments for doing business. I think you have a pretty good base. Is there anybody that wanted to share some of your experiences or research, your project details? Just checking before I continue. Nobody wanted to share any of your research files yet to get some feedback? Haven't seen too much shared in Facebook. You should share your Facebook and feedback. So was that making sense? You should share your project in Facebook and give comments on how to improve the understanding to the other groups. Please try to start doing that.
So I think we don't have time, but I just want to remind you that for the paper, the business system of Vietnam, I think this paper is very good. So you can see, you know, the culture and the Vietnamese practices and also the corporate, social responsibilities. And we also can see the whole business system in Vietnam in this paper. And please, take some time to go through this paper, and I hope you can share something in our class Facebook group.
If you do go through any of these articles related to our class topic, I will participation points for that. Thank you for pointing it out. Again, this is one of the files that's in our weekly class file. It's an article. You share that. There's points available for that. Yes. Market oriented. Again, it's everything is going towards privatization. Even government organizations are being privatized because the government sees you can get a heck of a lot of money. There's a lot of benefit if you privatize. The drivers of improvement economic well-being of citizens is the overall idea. The government is very much like a very old-fashioned thinking grandfather. He wants the whole family to benefit. He may be a little bit proud of a grandson that's growing a business very successful, but if that successful person isn't benefiting the other brothers and sisters, which means the whole town or the community, then the grandfather will be upset with that person. Just the same thing that happened in China recently. The Chinese government is like an old-fashioned grandfather, and Jack Ma, which has the Ant Group or Alibaba, he was growing so fast, becoming such a huge billionaire that he started laughing at the people, the government officers and the government policies around him, that government basically stopped his business. And he basically had to disappear for a few months until people saw that, yes, the government is in power, we respect the government, don't make fun of the government. You don't make fun of the government in China or in Vietnam. You should contribute to job creation. The idea nowadays, lots of AI, machine learning, robots can do almost everything. But if you're trying to make a company in Vietnam, for example, to build cars or manufacture things, it's better to say you're going to hire many people to sew these things or make these things by hand. So you're going to give many jobs. That is better, and you will get approved faster than if you say you're going to have robots do it all. If you are going to have robots do it all, talk about how you're educating the whole community on how to develop with the technology. You have to benefit to society. Otherwise, local government, even if you pay them, they might feel like they're hurting their family members. So be aware of that. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Here again, it's the government policy called the what? This is the name given to the government policy to create new businesses. Everything before was all government controlled, government run. Now, almost everything is private run and people can start almost anything. I was able to go and start a new business relatively easily, and it only took me maybe 15 minutes of thinking. However, it took 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for at least 3 weeks to get done. You guys understand that? Pia, can you understand what I just said? That's pretty confusing. I started a business and it took me about 15 minutes of thought to make and officially run the business properly, ethically, legally. However, that took every day full-time work for about 3 weeks. You understand what that means?
Maybe because you planned it out in your head, but the bureaucracy was a lot to handle, so it took a long time to officially do it.
So, yes, so why did it, let me just explain. I could add to it and say, it only cost me a couple $100 to start a new business. What I meant by that is for a couple $100, you can hire staff for a monthly salary for a couple $100. But that staff has to go to the government office and then go to another one, and explain all of these things, fill out so many different forms, get somebody else to sign it, somebody else to agree to it, get tax approval, land approval, society approval, all sorts of different approvals. And that could take 3 weeks. And so I would have a full-time staff working on that. And I only needed to really sign documents that took me 15 minutes. but the other staff was working nonstop for like 3 weeks. That's what I'm talking about. That type of thing happens, unfortunately, quite a lot. So again, are you guys interested in government policy back in the 80s, 90s? I'm biased. I think I'm not that important. I think it's not that important. Let's get on to, we've only got a few minutes left. So this is the idea of what is authority. You have to know who has authority, how to get and contact the people with authority. It's not like in Scandinavia where you can just walk in and talk to the president or the king, or Canada where you can write a letter to the minister or the government. Here, unless you have the connections, you can't get in touch with the authority. It's very hard. So it's influenced by Confucianism. Management style is definitely very authoritative and participative. The top CEO, the top founder, they generally run everything. They decide everything. If somebody is saying that inside my company, I'm growing a lot this way, and it's something new business that is not like the society, if the city thinks that's not mine, I will probably just cut it off, even if it's developed by my staff. So that staff might be fired. If it's new to me, if it's not approved by me, that could hurt the idea. So it has to be controlled by the authority. Usually it's strong male bias, but that's changing quite rapidly. There are a lot of ladies. As I said, the wealthy people, the powerful people of the country are very, very powerful. And whether it's a guy that has the money from his mom and dad, or if it's a girl that has the money from the mom and dad, any of those people walking through society, they can do anything. I don't know if I should tell you examples. Sometimes I have been doing like illegal driving in a car, or I get into a small accident in a car, and the police officer will pull me over, and my staff that is from a super powerful family, all my staff had to do was when the police officer starts asking me basically for my permits, and they don't care about the permit. They're looking for money underneath the permit. You can't just show money easily. You're supposed to hide the money when you're giving it. But as the police officer came over, all my staff had to do was just put their head from the back seat over and say hi. And the police officer said, oh, okay, go ahead. So the powerful members of society have a lot of power. Hard to understand. There are gender prejudices, but again, if there's money, if there's benefit, that trumps everything. Participation of women in business, it's increasing a lot. I've seen a lot of that. Some of the biggest universities are completely women controlled. Some of the hardest working people, the best working people I've seen in Korea and in Vietnam are usually the ladies, because they grow up with the grandfather type view that the son or the boy is right. So for the girl to be noticed, she has to work harder inside her family. And that goes for work in many ways. And I definitely would vote for women's rights. They seem to work very, very well. Ownership. Vietnamese economy was a command economy in which the state owned all businesses a long time ago, and they were restricting private development. There's only 2 legally recognized forms of ownership in Vietnam, including state entities and collectives. What we're generally talking about here is that the government owns almost all land, and the government will give you permits to do things, but it's still controlled by the government. A lot of the land for foreigners coming in, the foreigners will invest to own the land and make the buildings, but it's you only own it for 50 years. And then it says the contract may be renewable or can be renewable. But if you bother the government at any time, that government law can change and you can lose things. However, for 99% of businesses, it's very good. It's very good for doing business in Vietnam. foreign direct companies, almost any foreign investment, foreign direct investment can be used to start almost any company, including some of these now. Korea is making cars in Vietnam. They're usually, to be effective, however, going through domestic companies. For example, you have to have the connections, like Hyundai and Kia and the Japanese Mazda company and the French European Peugeot company. All of those companies have huge manufacturing facilities in Vietnam, but those factories are all in one factory controlled by, it's a Vietnamese factory. They make Vietnamese cars, Vietnamese trucks, Vietnamese buses, but most of their work is actually making these other foreigner cars. That's pretty interesting. Any questions about any of this stuff, since our time is basically up? Any questions?
Professor,
Yes.
may I know that what is the maximum amount of coffee money in Vietnam?
I don't understand the question. What is the maximum amount of money in Vietnam?
For coffee money.
I have seen more than you can imagine. If you have to ask, you can't afford it. I grew up with a wealthy family, like millionaire families, but my parents always taught me anything we can't afford. So I still think I can't afford this, I can't afford this, I can't afford this. However, I've seen other people, other international people, they're going in and just going to a restaurant. Sometimes they'll give $100 tip to the waitress just to get good service. And they get very good service. And so that type of thing happens socially and also with business. So some people will give hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for contracts, but obviously it's a small percent, like usually less than 1% of the business is the coffee money overall. So hundreds of millions of dollars project, you could easily expect, $1 million commissions. Does that make sense? I've been a part of that. Is that it?
Yes, Professor, thank you.
Tuong, did you say something? Did you want to comment on it?
No, I mean, it can, even I'm Vietnamese, but, that's kind of, various. It varies, depends on, how much benefits you get. So it should be, that's kind of a benefits back, kind of, the balance. If you get more, you should give back more.
Right. For example, let's make this good so I don't get anybody in trouble, like my family. I have seen other businesses, foreign businesses that get set up and they operate, and they start operating so well that for a long time there's no problem. But it's because our staff has been giving small coffee money to the government officers to make sure the government is happy, specifically head people in maybe a police force. Maybe you're giving $10, $20 during the year for presents at the end of the year. But then if that person changes, if he retires and a new person comes in, that new person that might not know of it, they may come in and start checking things. And you may get audited, and you may have police coming to your business every day to check what's going on with your business. Why are, maybe regardless of the reality, you have this problem with your tax, you have this problem with the certification, you have this problem. And generally it's because somebody hasn't been at the top getting the approval.
Professor, I think we run out a little bit time. So if any of you want to go to the class, so you can go. So may we have